Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm here to talk with you about Vedic astrology and how it affects your life and the state of the world as we see it right now, or how it reflects that state of the world. So there have been some really interesting developments over the past week. Um, Actually, pretty much in common with what I've been saying is coming, especially in regards to the Ketu Mars conjunction, which has been a big item for a lot of people, a lot of astrologers. The but first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Gary Gomes. I have roughly 35 years experience um, as a Vedic astrologer, and I do readings. I give lessons. So if you'd like to contact me for either one of those, I can be reached at 508 525 0001. Again, that's 508 525 0001. And you can text me at that number, and you can also reach me at Gary Gomes, g@gmail.com. Also, for those of you who are tuning into this channel for the first time, please do subscribe. I'm really getting close to 1,000 subscribers. It's taken me a while. I haven't really paid attention to the ways in which you can increase YouTube hits. I've like built this up from the ground level. My videos do take a long time to get through, and but I feel that's it's part and parcel of who I am as an individual. That is, I don't um, like to give you the whole story, not just like bits and pieces, to get you excited and then turn off. So it does require a little bit more patience to watch these videos. I understand that, and I appreciate it. You're, you're extremely valued, and I rather have um, obviously I'd rather be popular, but I'd rather have um, people who want to pay attention rather than people who just click on for a few minutes and say, "Okay, that's nice." Um, I know what's going to happen, and then click off to do something else. So it's not really, it has nothing to do with ego. It just has to do with you getting the whole story as opposed to like bits and pieces of it. Now, I received a couple of special requests for this week, and I'm going to try to honor all of them. I'd also like to talk. So one was about the Ukraine, one was about the European Union. The European Union came in earlier. Um, but also, I'd like to talk about what's happening currently in California. I found out about it last night, uh, and actually from one of the subscribers to this channel. So I have to give a shout out to her and thank her very much for letting me know about it. And also, I would like to talk about something I found out that's happening in Canada just recently in terms of the last election. So, um, I'm not sure we're going to see a flip um, to a conservative prime minister, but all of a sudden the entire election's been brought into doubt. So this is, um, and it was ruled so by a judge. So we'll see what's happening there just a little bit as well. I'll try to give you a condensed view of what I think is happening in the world. South Korea just changed governments or just elected a new government, which is apparently, I don't have the full details, but it's apparently a big shift from their previous governments, and that the government is rather left leaning. So that may have complications. for the rest of for Southeast Asia. We'll see. These things aren't necessarily. I think we can make too big a deal out of changes that happen in local governments as opposed to looking at the larger picture. So let me pull up the Ukraine chart first of all, just because that was the most recent request I got. And I was asked to look at it through the Kota chakra chart. So I'll do that first. That's actually going to be the most work. Okay, so this is the standard chart for you. I'm sorry, this is the European Union. I'm sorry. Let me flip the charts. All right, so this is the Ukraine chart. I've gone through this chart several times before. I'm not going to restate it. Ukraine's chart is basically an unstable chart, although it does have luck from other countries. Does have that cluster of one, two, three, four planets in the ninth house. But as we've seen before, large clusters of planets are not necessarily a good thing for a chart. Excuse me. I'm going to take a drink. Just water. But so this gives a lot of allies. This ninth house combination gives a lot of allies, a lot of luck. But that ally, Ukraine is running into right now is we have a Mars Ketu conjunction coming over that house of allies, which indicates there's going to be increasing pressure on those allies to back off. So let's look at the Kota Chakra Dasha. Um, also from so that's from the rising sign or the Lugna, as they call it in Vedic astrology. It's in the ninth house from the moon is in the eighth house, which is um, it gives really, really mixed results for the Ukraine's fortunes. Ukraine is in a Jupiter Mahadasha right now, moon subperiod. Um, since March 6th, it'll enter a Mars subperiod in July 8th. Mars is a friendly planet, excuse me, to this rising sign. Uh, but I don't know, there are a lot of things happening in this chart. Saturn will also aspect Mars in this particular chart around that time. So while it's experienced defeats over the past couple of years or setbacks over the past couple of years, it did manage to give that surprising raid this past summertime. And that was mainly because we have Mars and Ketu surrounding the ninth house. And I believe the raid actually occurred when Ketu had entered the ninth house, so that gave it an element of surprise. Mars entering the ninth house is going to put a lot of pressure on its allies. So let's look at the Kota Chakra Dasha, or the Kota Chakra chart. Let's quickly. I need to find it. I'm sorry, folks. Sorry to look about the chakra. Let me, oh, there we go. That was pretty easy to find. All right, so the Kota chakra is analyzed. In a way, it's a little bit like a Sudarshan chakra dasha, but it's used to analyze transits more fully. Um, And so this is the rising sign. Let me just, go to chakra. So if we have Stasha over here, moon is aspecting Mars. Um, I need to, because this print's really small. Sorry, folks. Um, I'm looking at this carefully. You're going to see, all right, so Saturn's in the fourth house of the chart. Jupiter's in the seventh over here. Oh, oh boy. All right. So this over here, this Ketu over here, probably the fourth house position. So the reason it has so many allies is because it has a Vernata Ligna over here in roughly in the third house from the ascendant, and the Upapata Ligna in the fourth house from the ascendant. Um, we have, however, allies are starting to show some signs of weakening because this is roughly the sixth house from the ascendant, and it's aligning with Mars, and this doesn't look good. So, all right, so this isn't as detailed an analysis as I would like to do. I'll do a more detailed analysis last week, but this chart looks pretty bad to me. Um, I think there's a real danger that Ukraine will be swarmed over the next couple of months. I could be wrong about that. I know nobody's perfect, but given these planetary factors, given the relative positions of the planets and how they're causing various warlike states, um, we may not see an independent Ukraine by the end of the summertime. Now, that's not what I want to see happen. Okay, I'm just projecting. You know, I have to be honest about that. But Saturn, the Saturn opposition over here, you like keep them within the lines where they're functioning, or where they're functioning, excuse me, in this chart. I really don't like this configuration. Ukraine will be protected to a certain extent, but this is a weak position for allies, if I'm reading this correctly. And this doesn't look good. So if I'm looking at, at the transits, these transits are almost not always are mostly unfavorable. Um, And I think you're going to see a lot of the European allies just ditch Ukraine. Uh, Maybe France will stay in there for a while. That's the only country I can see staying in for a while. Uh, the United States is still giving military aid to Ukraine. So I want to disavow people of any notion that the United States has stopped supporting them. But this is not a good chart. Um, I wouldn't be astonished if they didn't face total collapse by the end of the summertime, if not within about a month and a half. And that may seem surprising given the news we're getting um, right now, but um, I mean, maybe they'll have some miraculous recovery. But yeah, outside, given the Mahadasha Ukraine is in, um, I don't know. It just looks like it's in a collapsing state. Okay, it may prove me wrong. It may the Jupiter Mahadasha may salvage it, but I'm thinking not so much. This will be because I don't like that. Yeah, the various forts in the Kota chakra are not strong, at least as I see them. Okay, so all right, so I'll look at this in more detail next week. Okay, but it doesn't look good right now. So we're gonna switch over to the European Union chart. Um, so I'm gonna change back to the regular layout. So I can switch to the European Union chart. So that's the standard page. But just looking at this, that Mars K2 conjunction in the ninth house, it's K2 takes things away. That's the only thing. And I also think, uh, I also suspect the government's going to collapse. So for Ukraine's sake, and also I don't think this would be uh, good for Russia or good for the United States. Um, there is change coming. The Moon Saturn conjunction in this chart is not favorable. If I look at the regular chart, this could indicate three levels. Yeah, so between now and maybe late July, there'll be this impression that uh, they're going to win, but there'll be a lot of major upsets. Okay, so let's flip to the European Union chart. And if you're pulling for Ukraine or if you're Ukrainian, I feel sorry that I'm saying these things right now. Um, but I, like I said, for years, I haven't seen how Ukraine was able to sustain itself. Maybe it'll surprise me. Um, all right, so let's go. So Uh, but again, it's one of those things where I think various countries around the world are getting really kind of tired of the Ukrainian situation, and um, it's essentially um, there are the big nations in Europe are behind Ukraine, like France, Germany, but people in Italy don't want to send people to fight in Ukraine. A large swath of Eastern Europe doesn't want to support Ukraine. Um, Poland, it just had a new government elected. They're not really crazy about supporting Ukraine. Um, Hungary, Romania, all those countries are kind of pulling back, and even and I believe there are reports from Germany that Germany's citizens aren't anxious to fight for Ukraine. So it's really it, to me it's really tough to see how they can survive. But the transit on the Dakota chakra didn't look really good. Um, but again, I want to spend more time with that. So that was a last minute request. So I want to make sure I'm not overly pessimistic. So I'll revisit that again next week. The European Union chart is an interesting darn chart. It's so these are the strengths are we have a Mars Rahu conjunction in the fourth house, which is a Raj Yoga. It creates a Raj Yoga in the chart, so that's good for it. It's in a Rahu Mahadasha, um, but it's also in a Rahu Ketu subgrid, which indicates it's losing prestige. So it goes from Rahu Ketu chart to Rahu Venus. Now, one of the things we can see from this chart is it's a Leo rising. The first lord is debilitated, so it's very weak, the first lord. So the actual vitality of the European Union is suspect. It's impulsive too because Jupiter's in Libra. That's something that I've made note of through the years. It was something I haven't learned through any astrology book, but I've just noticed it. Jupiter in Libra is impulsive and it believes it can change things for the better, contrary to every um, reasonable person's expectations. It believes it can change things for the better, or it believes it can force everybody to get along, for lack of a better term. Venus is debilitated. The third house lord is debilitated in this chart. So it does have some will because Jupiter in the third house it gives the impression that the person can tell people how to act or what to do. But it's in Libra, which is not a very favorable sign for Jupiter. Venus is debilitated, it's weak in terms of economic future. Um, Moon is strong by sign. So the thing that saves it is that Mars Moon opposition in the chart. And Saturn's in the sixth house, a certain stubbornness that comes with that combination in its own sign. But it really can't. So one thing I'll mention about Libra suns, um, contrary to popular belief, this doesn't make a person wimpy or withdrawn. As a matter of fact, most debilitated planets, from what I've seen, tend to overcompensate for perceived weaknesses in the chart. So essentially, what you'll have with the European Union is a large emphasis on forcing people to do what it wants to do. So one of the things that sort of underscores this is Saturn's aspect on Libra in this chart. So um, if says to the European Union, well, we rather do this, or we rather not pay into this fund, or we rather have our own candidates winning, their essentially their reaction will be, no, you must have everything our way. You know, that's sort of like the de so the debilitated sun will essentially try to impose its its will on others. Uh, it won't be viewed as having a legitimate right to rule. It will be viewed as being essentially somebody who essentially forces people to rule. It's a bureaucracy. Saturn in Capricorn can indicate bureaucracies, uh, but it's a weak inspirational force. So it isn't, to my eyes, a legitimate leadership. The fact that the the Venus is debilitated in the chart also gives us some economic problems. And although the moon is strong in this chart, it's a stubborn moon. It's near its maximum degree of exaltation, and it's aspected by Mars. And it's also in conjunction with Ketu. Now, Ketu can actually cause a loss in reputation or overall losses. Between May 30th and August 4th, I think you're going to see the European Union experience a great many losses. So it's essentially what's been happening, at least from what I've seen in Europe, is the European Union has been um, trying to influence elections across the continent. So and also even as far away as Canada, mainly so it can get candidates in who are sympathetic um, to its mission. But this Rahu Ketu period, followed by this August 4th to August 23rd period, and we have that Mars Ketu conjunction in Leo. That's kind of dangerous for this particular um, chart. So will it survive? It has to get through two really tough Mahadashas until it hits a relatively decent major planetary period at the age of 36, which is the moon period. And even that isn't good. If it can last until 2031, it'll probably recover or it may reform itself. But this is a really, despite the fact that it's a Leo rising, this is a really unstable chart. I can remember people looking at um, the euro, the chart for the euro, and saying that that was a bad chart. But the European Union chart looks like it's almost ready to collapse in on itself almost any minute now. Now, again, this may be overly pessimistic, and I may be betraying my own prejudices, for which I apologize. But this is really not, this Rahu chart, this Rahu period is really, so between 2014 to 2032, it will try to impose its will. It will try to expand and try to control things. Ketu, though, has taken away a lot of its cachet, a lot of its influence. Um, and some of the things that have been done to stop people from running have been um, going far back as a couple of years ago. There have been assassination attempts. There have been um, disqualifications of leaders from running. And these weren't necessarily conducted by the European Union itself, but by its allies within those countries. And between May 26th of 20 of 20 of 2026 and May 26th of 2029, I think you're going to see an economic um, decline. It may be rescued a little bit because Mercury and Venus exchange signs that cancels the debilitation, but it can't sustain itself very long. And I think by May of 2029, my estimate, you're going to see a collapse. Maybe sooner, but that's that's what I would give it as its expiration date. Now, again, it may hang around in a reduced form during the Jupiter Mahadasha, um, and you may be able to establish trade relationships, but or maintain trade relationships, but I think it'll be greatly diminished. That's just my impression. In terms of the component parts of the union, there's a strong, some members of the EU benefit greatly by membership, others benefit hardly at all. And I think one of the things that we're seeing is um, an increase in nationalism in Europe just in general. It isn't universal, okay, so let's be clear about that. But it's fairly present. Italy, Germany, France, UK. UK has already left the EU. Um, Hungary, all those countries. I don't know if I mentioned Italy. All those countries are kind of fed up uh, with the EU, and while there are large portions of the population who like being in the EU, there are larger portions of the population who are gaining in power. Portugal was another country that recently had some problems, and so it's certainly on shaky legs for at least another. See some recovery between May of 26 and May of 2029, but May of 2029, I think you're going to see, um, if not a collapse, then perhaps another constitution or a reformation over the next few years. So that's my take on the European Union. But basically, this Mars Ketu in the first house, as in the United States, it's in the United States' ninth house. You're going to see a lot of reformation of governments and a lot of protests and a lot of I would say political violence in Europe over the next few months, at the very least. And I think we're going to see some breaking away of more partner nations. So let's go on to just quickly to Canada. Let me see. I got it. That's great. Okay. So the Canada birth chart. Now, Canada, one of the reasons I'm pulling this up is because there was recently a finding that um, so Carney essentially holds a one seat plurality in the in for his party in Canada. That election has just been thrown out. The election that made up the one seat plurality was just thrown out uh, by the High Court in Canada. So I think it's interesting that this is happening during a Saturn. It's happening during a Saturn Mercury subperiod for Canada. Um, and let's see where Saturn is. So Saturn aspects Mercury in Canada. I'm not sure this will necessarily change the overall outcome, but there are several other districts that are being called, that are being challenged in the courts. They were challenged quietly by the Conservative Party. It wasn't like the media circus that happened in 2020 in the United States. But there were several elections that were being challenged in Canada by the Conservative Party in Canada. So essentially, and it was happening during a fifth house subperiod. And in terms of Saturn, um, then to be honest with you, there's some legitimacy to the ruling because Mercury is in the fifth house is part of Canada's legacy. Canada is overall a very nice um, and kind country. Is um, but it is fairly strict according to its laws, and so this Mercury subperiod. Now, again, I'm not entirely sure this will mean the election will change. Uh, that this means Carney will be ousted as a result of these other appeals, but I think it's three major areas that are being appealed. This was the first of three, and it's possible they could change the outcome of the election. Um, so this will be interesting to see how this all plays out down the road. But this is just this is really kind of a breaking situation. And given the fact that we have this K2 Mars conjunction in the sixth house, um, it will make it competitive. It will reveal certain things that were done during the election, which were probably not kosher. And also, um, it may unseat Carney, although I think that's a stretch in credibility, but it may unseat Carney. We'll see what happens with that. Okay, so I just want to cover that. In terms of United States chart, just quickly, see if I can get it. Okay, so we have that Mars K2 conjunction happening in the ninth house. This can partially explain the blow between Musk and Trump uh, happening. So they're both pretty Mars type figures, and Musk has a little bit of K2 added to him. He's eccentric. He's very, you know, there's some drug use reported with him, those kinds of things. And Rahu's in the same sign with the moon right now by transit. Now, also, Saturn's in the fourth house, aspecting the 10th house Saturn. So what, let's get to the immediate result. I think you're going to see a lot more riots this summertime and a lot more National Guard action this summertime. And this is going to be true not only in the United States, but around the world. So if you look right now at the United States dashas since February 9th of 2025 up until June 30th, we have this Rahu period, which to me indicates panic, and I would say to a certain extent, unreasonable panic about what's going to happen. After June 30th, things will calm down markedly, I think, although we will still have unrest in the streets, mainly because of the Mars and Ketu conjunction. But this will return to a more, now again, next year we should experience, up until April of 2027, we should experience similar things, but not quite so intense as we are right now. So so this is, um, so we did have shootings uh, in Boulder, Colorado. We did have violence in certain cities across the United States, and uh, President Trump called out the National Guard um, to have a presence in LA County, where there were demonstrations which apparently turned uh, violent or uncontrolled. And the logic that I heard the Trump administration using was that, um, or that I heard at least one individual indicating, was number one, it was violence. Number two, um, the demonstrators were interfering with an arrest, with an official federal action. That was the basis for calling in the National Guard. Whether or not you think that's justifiable or not, that's your opinion. But I am going to tell you, most countries around the world are not going to be quite as nice as they have been with protesters. This includes places like China. This includes places like um, Europe. This includes places like Russia. This includes places like Korea. It's so at least for about a month and a half, you'll see a lot more pushback from the government. Hopefully, there won't be any lives lost, but I'm not optimistic about that. So definitely, and it'll feel like a mini revolutionary period. I don't think it'll last very long, if I'm quite honest with you. But it'll feel almost um, very difficult over the next few weeks. Okay. All right. So this is the chart we have for today. This is where I'm going to start out looking at the individual charts. So we have Saturn in the seventh house again, moon's in the second. So it indicates change, more change. Mars and Ketu, as I said before, this conjunction is going to be very active until July, at least late July. So I would expect to see a lot of violence, especially aimed at rulers and or people in authority. And Mercury, and no party comes out looking good in this particular scenario. Um, we do have a Mercury-Jupiter combination in the 10th house. So this is actually a good combination for accessing new deals, making some more money. Venus is finally out of its exalted position into Aries. It'll probably sexualize people a little bit more, but also make them a little bit more prone to violence because it's the dispositor Mars is with K2, and that can give unexpected problems with things like um, fires or eruptions or else um, attacks on governments, excuse me. Rahu is in the sixth house in this chart, so there's a lot of dissatisfaction brewing. Saturn's in the seventh house, so this won't conclude quickly, and Saturn's aspecting the sun, so the sun will feel more empowered to take uh, heavier action within about a week's time. So, I mean, On the positive side, within about a week's time, people will feel more inclined to negotiate, more inclined to with authorities and with governments. But again, that Mars Ketu conjunction is going to be sort of a thorn in our side. Mars is aspecting Saturn, so one of the reasons you're seeing certain individuals um, getting very critical of the Democratic Party is because of that Mars aspect on Saturn. So it's going to be everything's going to have to be perfect, done a certain way, done a certain in a certain methodology or according to a certain belief system before individuals within liberal parties are happy. Okay, so that's sort of what the Mars Saturn does. Jupiter will have this will favor more conservative parties, at least from my experience. Jupiter tends to be a more conservative planet. Um, and let's see now. Yeah, so we expect a lot of governments to be facing problems, a lot of governments to be essentially usurped or changed, and continuing unrest in countries like South Korea and even Japan and China, uh, pretty much all around the world. This is not over yet. So let's go over here to, all right, so for Aries, good relationships with the wife, uh, but some difficulty dealing with children. Um, and also this sign will lose its temper fairly quickly. Uh, Aries will tend to be rather bossy, yeah, but also diplomatic this week. And relationship status may change a little bit for this sign. Rahu's in the 11th house, so it'll give gains, and Saturn's in the 12th, so again, a lot of expenses connected with this sign. For Taurus, this is May 15th through June 15th. Sun is in the first house, a lot of focus on home, maybe need for reconstruction or rebuilding of the home or vehicles. Jupiter's in the second house, more money coming in, though, certainly, and more association with family. Moon is in the sixth house. This is good for um, gains with through hard work. And finally, we have Rahu in the 10th house. So there should be some recognition and work. But again, friends will probably be a little bit distant or remote. And Venus in the 12th, again, heavy expenditure patterns. For Gemini, this is June 15th to July 15th. Again, we have Mercury in its own sign. It performs at what's called a Bhadra Yoga, which is one of the, I think is one of the best yogas in Vedic astrology, personally. But Bhadra Yoga tends to give health, more emphasis on health to people with this sign. It tends to give them more relationship opportunities. Um, and so Bhadra Yoga occurs when Mercury is in its own sign or its exalted sign, and it only has two places to manifest that, Gemini and Virgo. So this is this also creates kind of a career combination, a combination for career success, um, willingness to travel for work, strong, ambitious nature, and Moon is in the fifth house, so this should give. So although there are expenses and probably expenses connected with family, the moon in the fifth house will see some improvement in relationships with children over the next week. Rahu's in the relationship life is will also be a kind of a strong emphasis for this particular sign. Rahu's in the ninth house. This is actually a good placement for Rahu. Rahu likes this sign, so there will be increased potential for fame for this sign and overall good luck. Venus is in the 11th house, good for financial gains, but again, a lot of expenses. Okay, so try to be careful. Um, If you can hold off on buying things for about a week, try to do so. For Cancer, Cancer has um, no real planets in this house, although Cancer does go, Cancer's Lord Moon goes to the fourth house. So this will put a lot of emphasis on home life, emotional life, career life will be very strong for this sign. Uh, but this sign will have to watch out for outbursts of temper. It's not a bad combination. It's actually good for money, but outbursts of temper can kind of take away all the money or all the goodwill you've earned from people. Uh, there will be fights in the family. And let's see now. Let's go over here. Jupiter aspects the moon, so good opportunity for writing for this sign. Good opportunity for writing for any sign, to be honest, with that combination. Let's see now. For so Rahu is in the eighth. There are still some conspiracies against this sign, but not as bad as they were. So some there are some combinations which indicate the potential for black magic in a chart. So sometimes this can be very simple. So as simple a thing as somebody being jealous of you, okay, and wishing you bad luck. So it doesn't necessarily mean that, people are, sticking pins and voodoo dolls on you or stuff like that. Uh, People can undercut you through nasty words as well. So I think this is going to be an issue um, for Cancer over the next roughly 18 months, but it won't be as bad as it was when Saturn was there. Um, so jealousy is definitely indicated towards this sign, at least this particular month. And again, like I said, just be really careful who you get angry at. Relationship life looks relatively stable. Venus is in the 10th house, good for career growth. And we have planets in the 11th house, which gives gains from the government. Jupiter's in the 12th house. Jupiter and Mercury are relatively benevolent planets, so there can be some opportunity to save some money from this combination. Okay, Leo has Mars and Ketu in it. This is a rank conjunction in Vedic astrology. Whenever you have an angular lord and a node joining in a trinal house. So this is a trinal house. The first house is what's called a trine. Trines are five signs away from each other. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, nine. One, two, three, four, five. So Mars is the lord of a trinal house. It's in an angle that creates a combination of luck and action. So this should actually be a fairly good month for this sign. But again, there'll be a tendency towards short-temperedness or difficulty getting along with people. Um, Moon is in the third house, so there will at least be a diplomatic spin towards the beginning of the month. Venus and Jupiter are in the 11th house, good for financial gains. And um, Rahu's in the seventh house, so relationship partners will be either very demonstrative or a little bit difficult to please at the outside. Saturn's in the eighth house, so again, this is perpetual effort to take down this particular sign, especially with people who are jealous or more conservative. Venus is in the ninth house. That's a good combination. So good for career life and good for financial gains for Leo. This is Virgo. This is September 15th to October 15th. Um, Mars is the lord of the third and eighth house is in the 12th house. So that's actually good for getting rid of enemies, for abolishing them, especially through spirituality. The Lord of the First is in the 10th, so there's a lot of focus on career life this month and actually some success in career life. You'll notice that Mercury and Jupiter are right on top of each other. So Mercury is beating Jupiter in planetary war, which I neglected to mention earlier, but that's important. Fairly soon, Jupiter will be beating Mercury in planetary war, so you'll feel a little bit more of a conventional tone to conversations taking place over the next couple of days. One, two, Moon is in the second house, so good for financial gains for Virgo. Rahu's in the sixth. You'll have to watch out for either intestinal or food poisoning. And when I say food poisoning, I'm not talking about lethal stuff, but just run-of-the-mill stuff. Saturn's in the seventh house. Not a good time for new relationships. Venus is in the eighth. Some possible relief of windfalls. Good luck from the government and good luck in career. For Libra, the 10th Lord is in the first house. This normally means the sign is going to put a lot of attention on its activity. This is October 15th through November 15th, or Moon in Libra or rising sign in Libra. And so a lot of focus on career and life. Mars is in the 12th, a lot of expenses connected with family life and also with relationship life, um, and even unusual ones. So relationship partner will seem to be a little bit out of it, or maybe even a little bit sick this week, over the next month or so. Finally, when we get over to Rahu in the fifth house, this is actually a good combination. It gives benefits from past life efforts, a certain amount of fame and a certain amount of prestige. Saturn's in the sixth. I actually like Saturn in the sixth. It gives renewed uh, competitiveness, determination to succeed at all costs. Venus is in the seventh house. You'll probably find yourself being attractive to the opposite sex. Sun is in the eighth house, so sometimes there will be some slight gains from previous efforts, but overall financial like will improve next week, not this week. And finally, we have that Mars in the 12th house. Even though people may find you attractive, um, try to start as friends. Okay. So, no new relationships for Virgo, by the way. Let me just point that out. For Scorpio, Scorpio has Mars in the 10th house. This is good. So Libra will have good financial gains from unexpected sources. I forgot to mention that. Scorpio has no planets in the 11th house. Mercury and Jupiter are in the eighth house from the chart. So this will mean people coming out of the um, woodwork to find fault with you. This is what Joe Biden is going through right now. Um, Mars is in the 10th house, so it should be good for career life. But again, there will be some fame or defamation connected with career. Moon is in the 12th house, so loss of status for now. It's not all bad for a Scorpio. I don't want to give you that impression. Relationship life should be relatively stable. Home life should be relatively exciting and good. And also a lot of good partnerships coming in for this particular sign, which will produce money and financial prosperity because the seventh house is surrounded by benefics. So this isn't entirely bad. But again, I would wash out who I trusted, who I thought my friends were, and who my friends actually are. For Sagittarius, Sagittarius has Jupiter in the seventh house as it did last week, along with Mercury. So again, that creates a kind of a combination between the Lord's uh, the houses of action. Uh, and so this should make this sign very dynamic, very, um, trying to think of the right term, very enthusiastic about life, very competitive. Sun's in the sixth house, that underscores that. Venus is in the fifth. Some good luck from women and from previous relationship partners. Saturn's in the seventh. There will be some things at home which you'll have to accommodate, which will be relatively unpleasant. Rahu's in the third, so a lot of ambition for the sign. Mars is in the ninth in the Raj Yoga, so it actually is a good combination for success. Moon is in the 11th house for financial gains. Capricorn has Saturn in the third house. This particular combination is good for improving career, and Venus is in the fourth, so there should be some increased financial growth for the sign. A lot of competitiveness. Jupiter's in the sixth, so this is actually good because Lord of the House of Loss is in the sixth house, so that's cancels that combination out. Mercury's in the sixth house though as well, so sometimes some of these past benefits you've been expecting to realize may only come with a lot of effort or through careful attention to detail. Relationship life looks relatively good for Capricorn rising. Mars in the eighth house, not so great. I would stay out of new relationships for the time being. Aquarius has Rahu in the first house. This is actually Aquarius's own, or Rahu's own sign. Ketu is in Leo. Some astrologers consider this to be Ketu's own sign. So there can be new partnerships, especially creative partnerships formed for the sign. Saturn's in the second house, so there will be a feeling of being blocked and or hemmed in by family responsibilities. Venus is in the third house. That's a good combination for this planet to achieve its goals, especially creative goals and or business goals. Sun is in the fourth house. This will focus a lot on education and reading. Jupiter's in the fifth house. Good luck through hard work and also through study. Um, so, and also through communications. Moon is in uh, the ninth house. Overall, this is a good combination for new social skills. So Aquarius should do pretty well socially this month. Finally, last but not least, we have Pisces. Pisces is in the first house, and Saturn's in the first house. The Lord of the first house is Jupiter with Mercury. So again, this is similar to Sagittarius, Virgo, and Gemini, and this will be a very busy sign this month, at least until Mercury moves into the next sign next month. And you'll see a lot of action connected with goals and lifelong ambitions. Venus will be in the second house. It'll be good for financial growth for this sign. Sun is in the third house, good for increased courage. Jupiter is in the fourth house, forming that Vajra Yoga. So Mercury's in its own sign. And this is overall good for financial success and the blessings of divinity. So this sign should be relatively lucky, especially in home matters. Moon is in the eighth house, good combination for writing for this sign, and Rahu's in the 12th, so you have to be careful about it. Uh, what I would call obsessive buying, that is buying to make yourself happy. Okay? So that's it for the signs. Let's look at the time and space chart. I probably tried to do too much this week, but I hope at least some of it resonates with you. Let me just go over here. Going to close that again. And we're going to do a time and space change one more time if I can get the mouse over there. He's coming. He's coming. He's coming. He's there. He's there. Yay. Okay. All right. So these are the conflict lines we have over Alaska. Rahu, Saturn, Mercury, Jupiter. So some concerns about finances in those parts of the world. That's what I'm seeing those mainly causing. There is a Venus line going over California and Western Canada. Um, by the way, Saskatchewan has it's really close to I think it's Saskatchewan and one other region in Canada are really close to seceding, so we'll have to watch that over the next couple of weeks. Um, and we have a Venus and a Mars line passing close to those regions in Canada. Um, and we do see essentially California segue between Venus, or not segued, uh, squash between Venus and Mars, uh, and Venus and Mars line. And we should actually see some protests in places, oddly enough, like Utah, New Mexico, and um, even even further and even into New Mexico and Arizona. Um, we have a moon line passing over um, Canada, so that does indicate change in governments. So I'll bet it was Alberta and Saskatchewan. Wow. Um, we have a sun line passing over and a Rahu line passing over New York City. So I wouldn't be surprised to see demonstrations in or near New York City. Um, and the sun line, so governmental protests probably up and down the East Coast. I wouldn't be terribly surprised to see that. And also um, disruptions in South America, especially in Venezuela, Peru, and Chile, and even in Argentina. And we have some political scandals coming up close to New England and in Puerto Rico and in Guyana and down to Brazil and Argentina. There's a Venus line going over Brazil. Venus is actually sort of an interesting planet in that it can be violent at times, especially if it's ruled by, um, if it's influenced by Mars and Ketu, which it is right now. So you may even see some civil unrest in Brazil. There's a Mars line running right through Ireland, Portugal, Northwest Africa, down through the Ivory Coast. So I would expect to see some disruption, some civil discord in France, all the way to Norway, and even all the way to Germany. Okay, so that's as a matter of fact all the way to Poland. So Europe's going to be kind of a mess. So are Libya and Egypt, to be honest with you, and so is most of Central Africa and even Nigeria, if I'm entirely truthful, and definitely down to South Africa and Angola. Um, we have a Saturn line running through Finland all the way down into Egypt and down to Sudan. So this can mean economic problems. Um, Mars is also aspecting Saturn right now, so I'm not. So again, I wouldn't be surprised to see some political violence in those parts of the world. Uh, Ukraine is over here. We have a sun line passing over Ukraine. Um, Sun is aspected by Saturn as well. There's a Mercury line running through. So Ukraine is it's holding up for the time being. So it has a bit of a boost because of the attack it made on Russia, but I don't know how long that's going to last. And let's see now. We have Mercury and Jupiter lines running through um, Russia, also through We have a sun line running through Turkey, so there can be some governmental disruptions in Turkey. The Mercury and Jupiter lines are running through Saudi Arabia, close to Israel, uh, close to Iraq. So there can be shifts in governments in those parts of the world, even in Iran. We have a Venus line running through Iran, so some possible flooding in Iran. Moon is running through Pakistan into northwest India, and so there can be some additional conflict there. I hope not. And there's a Mars line running up through Bengal and into Ladakh and Bangladesh and India. So India is surrounded by these two very difficult lines. Hopefully, they can keep their cool, and Pakistan can keep its cool, and nothing serious will happen. There's a sun line running through Thailand, um, close to Burma and Malay, and we have a Rahu line running through China. So expect these parts of the world to be relatively unstable over the next few months. Okay. Um, we'll see what the eclipse does in September. I'll have to look at that in a few, either next week or the week after. And I want to look at the Ukraine chart again. Um, we have a moon and Venus line in Japan and Korea. As I told you, they just changed governments. Um, and there's okay, so Guyana looks like it's in not Guyana, New Guinea. It looks like it's in pretty good shape, and so does Australia. But again, some ferment behind the scenes, and especially in Western Australia. Western Australia isn't happy. Um, at least not with the government. So I'm seeing the moon line running and Venus line running through Japan. Japan's in relatively decent shape. New Zealand isn't though. So we have that Sun line and Mars line. I'm sorry, a Mars line running through New Zealand. So it's unusual to hear about government protests in New Zealand, but it looks like they're going to get hit with that or some kind of violence over the next week or so, over the next few weeks. So that's it for me for this week. Sorry that took so long. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all. Please, if you have any questions, comments, or ideas, just throw them at me and I'll do my best to accommodate you. Okay? I do want to look at the Ukraine map again a little bit more closely because that was a last minute request and I didn't really um, my superficial examination was negative, but I want to give it a little bit more time next week. Okay, thanks very much for watching, and I have to go now. And God bless you all, and I love you all for watching. Thanks a lot. And I love you all even if you don't watch. All right, have a good day. Bye-bye now, and have a great week.